Hi, I'm Bob, and welcome to Between the Sheets, where we look at Microsoft Excel and related technologies. When you need some quick temporary data for a worksheet, if you're testing it for example, use Excel's random number generators. There are 3 of them. One of them is new in the 365 editions. They work in both the Windows and Mac versions, and they're all pretty straightforward. So let's take a look and see how it works. Here we have the start of a typical worksheet, and I want to use all 3 functions to show you how they work. The first one I'm going to do is column H, where I'm going to put in a discount percentage. And let's take a look at the function that we're going to use for that. I'm going to use the oldest function, the simplest one, the rand function. And the rand function will always generate a random number that's a decimal somewhere between 0 and 1. And the function syntax is very simple, equals rand, empty parenthesis. Nothing ever goes inside the parenthesis, but you have to have them because it's a function. So what I'm going to do here in column H, I'm going to say equals rand, hit the tab key or type in the parenthesis, and that's pretty much it. I'll press Control Enter. So I enter and stay on that cell, there we go, and I'm just going to drag it down a little bit. So it did exactly what it was supposed to do, a decimal somewhere between 0 and 1. Now I want this to be just a percentage, so I'm going to leave it selected, and on the Home tab of the ribbon bar, I'm going to hit the percent button. That's really all there is to it. One thing you're going to notice with this function and the other 2 functions I'm about to show you is that this function is going to keep working. It's going to keep generating random numbers. So as I do things, these numbers will change. The random numbers will change when you do anything. I'll just borrow some space here. If I type some text and enter it, you notice those numbers change. If I delete that text, you notice the numbers change. They will keep changing over and over. And if you want to lock those numbers in, I'm going to show you how at the end of this video. But let's keep going. What I want to do is, let's say down the January column, I want to put not a decimal, I want to put an integer, and I also want to specify the range of what those integers will be. Let's look at the next function. This is where we use the RANDBETWEEN function. And the syntax, we say equals RANDBETWEEN, and then we have 2 arguments. What's the lowest number that you want to get, and what's the highest number that you want to get. So I'm going to say equals RANDBETWEEN, so it fills in the syntax there. I'm going to hit the tab key. So I'm going to say the lowest number I want is 100, comma, the highest number I want is 999. Close the parenthesis, Control Enter. So I get that. By the way, notice column H is changing. And I'm going to fill down, let's say, so we have 10 rows. And there we go. Pretty straightforward. Now, I want to fill in the remaining 5 months. And I have a few choices. Of course, I could, since we have all of this selected, they share one common autofill handle. I could get that autofill and drag all the way out, and I've got them, no problem. I'm going to undo that because there's another function that I want to show you. I'm going to click at the top of February. So what we have remaining is 5 months, we have 5 columns, and we still have 10 rows. So let's take a look at the 3rd function. That function is called RANDARRAY, and that was introduced in the 365 editions. And the syntax, we say equals RANDARRAY, and the first argument is how many rows of numbers do we want, how many columns of numbers do we want, and kind of like the RANDBETWEEN function, what's the lowest number and then what's the highest number. And this can work like either of the 2 previous functions, where it gives us a decimal or it gives us an integer. And it's going to be true, false, but don't worry if you have to remember true, false. You don't have to remember because the live syntax checker is going to do that for you. Let's go take a look. So right there, and notice I'm not selecting other cells. I'm just staying put there. I'm going to say equals RANDARRAY. So I want to have 10 rows, comma, 5 columns, and that's including the column that I'm in right now. Like before, I want the lowest number to be 100, comma, the highest number to be 999. I want integers, comma. So here's where you don't have to remember true or false. The syntax checker tells you, so I'm just going to use my arrow cursor down over true. I want an integer, hit the tab key, close a parenthesis and enter, and boom, it just gives it to me. You may notice that this is a spill function, new class of functions in the 365 editions, and you could identify it because it has this nice shaded border. Also, here is the cell where I typed in the formula, and you can see the formula looks normal. If I click in any of the other cells, you see the formula is grayed out. So the formula is really just in that upper left corner cell, and all the other cells are just kind of borrowing it. Now, as I said before, if I do anything on this worksheet, these numbers are going to change. I'll just go over to this blank cell there, and notice all of those numbers change. I'm going to go and delete it. All of those numbers change. If you want to go and lock all of these numbers in so they don't change, what you have to do is convert them from formulas to the actual value. So I'm just going to select all of that stuff. I'm going to copy to the clipboard. I'll press Control-C on the keyboard or Command-C on the Mac. And I'm on the Home tab of the ribbon. There's the Paste button. I click the down arrow. And you see we've got these three sections here of how to deal with clipboard content. And the second section is paste values. I'm going to click the first one there. And boom, these are now pasted as values. I'll hit the escape key, clear off the marching ants. And now when I click any of these, notice up in the formula bar, that's a number. It's not a formula, so these will remain. So if I enter anything else, those numbers don't change. If I delete it, they don't change. This also means, if you want, you can manually adjust some of these. Because let's say column H, we're talking about discounts, and maybe you say, well, 91% is maybe not so realistic. Let's just change that randomly to maybe 60% or something. And you could do that. So you could tweak all of these however you like. You may find other uses for these functions too. They're especially great for me as an Excel trainer, so I can create example files quickly. So until next time, my name is Bob, and this has been Between the Sheets.